welcome to my podcast, Spiritual Quest, with me, your host, Vibeke Garnos, always guided by Spirit. I am very excited to share my gift with you and empower you to embrace your gift. So if you define yourself as a spiritual human being, then you've come to the right place. So prepare yourself now for an amazing journey where your soul will lead the way. Welcome to Spiritual Quest, always guided by Spirit. Whenever I felt stuck in life or questioning whether or not I'm on the right path, I set aside time to go within and listen to my soul. I met my next guest after tuning in and allowing the guidance of Spirit. Paul Williamson is a past life regression specialist with 34 years of experience. At 18, he awakened to the concept of reincarnation, leading him out into the world. Born an Australian, Paul's spiritual quest led him out into the world, helping people to reconnect with their soul and to heal past trauma. Paul has written 10 books, and his latest book, Soul Stories, is a collection of past life stories and spiritual exploration with some of his clients. Paul and I met back in 2012 at the Life Between Lives Hypnotherapy training in the UK, where I was blessed to be able to work with Paul for a whole week. Today, Paul is back in Australia, traveling the country, simply helping people with his partner Dee. I'm excited to explore this concept of reinventing life with my friend Paul Williamson. A warm welcome to you, Paul.
Hello, Vibeke. It's a real pleasure, as always, to talk to you, and thank you very much for inviting me today. It's very good to be with you again.
Likewise, Paul. I enjoy our conversations, and like I said prior to us going on air, I support you. I love the work you do and the way you just allow yourself to be guided by listening and tuning in. So I'm very excited to get to know your story more in depth. So would you please share for me and the audience here your story about how you reinvented your life? Because I know you have reinvented your life quite a bit. So would you please share your story with us?
Oh, yes. I'm not sure that the term reinventing myself would be really how I would regard my life, really, because I feel the whole process of life is about tuning into yourself and becoming more who you are. And so it's not so much about your mind or your creativity inventing something new, but it's more about tuning into who you really are and allowing that to express itself. And I guess as we get older, as we go through different phases of our life, then there are different needs and different channels how we can express ourselves. And I'm more inclined to feel that this can happen naturally and also just by us tuning into our intuition about what we need to do and how we need to go forward. And certainly that can go through lots of transformations and changes, and we can be guided to meet all sorts of fascinating people, just like yourself, to me, is a fascinating person. Um, so all of that can happen. And I feel at the moment, if I can go on with this, we do seem to be going through a phase in our world at the moment where there's a lot of turmoil and where things are particularly challenging right across the globe in very different ways in different places. But it's quite unsettling, I feel, for a lot of people. So at the moment in my life, I'm choosing quite a simple path. I'm traveling in Australia in different places and working still as much as I ever did, and also writing. But I feel, really for me to be in my center, just to deal with whatever's coming at me and what's going on around me
Mm.
is the best I can do at the moment.
Thank you for sharing that. And I do appreciate you saying that the reinvention of life, it's how you it's a perspective, I guess, from a mind point of view. When you live from the soul, like you're expressing now, it's being authentic, like you said. It's peeling the layers, I guess, that made us forget about who we truly are, and to unfold again and to really embrace our true nature, if you wish. And you just said that you're working more than ever, or in some way or not. You're saying you have a lot of clients. And I just wonder if you could share a little bit if you've seen any difference between the interest in the soul work, if you wish, prior to these last 2 years. Do you see a shift? Do you see a transformation in humanity? What is your experience of that?
Well, it's certainly been a very disruptive time with the pandemic going on around the globe. Um, and there does seem to have been a tendency for people to become more introverted, a lot of people during this time, certainly in Australia, but I've perceived it happening in other countries from people that I'm in contact with. So a lot of struggle as well, how to cope and deal with that. So yes, I feel with that there has been a tendency in those people that are open to it to really dig deeper, and we have to dig deeper just to find meaning and the sense of finding purpose, and finding the energy to really devote ourselves to that purpose, even though the conditions might be difficult. I feel that is going on a lot in the world. And I feel it's also something where it's it's a time where people are needing to summon their strength inside them to be true to themselves. There's a lot of people that are behaving like sheep, and sort of just going off to one scheme of thought or reality or things they see on the internet, or all sorts of other things, which just follow a pathway where they're just being like others. But that, I feel, doesn't go very far. And I feel what's more important for people is to tune into who they are as an individual soul. So it's a time, on the one hand, where I feel we need to claim our individuality of who we truly are from our hearts. And on the other side, it feels to me to be a time where we are needing to find a sense of community, on our planet again. I feel that's been in many places lost. I feel that very much in Australia, that there's been a very strong fragmentation of people, feeling a sense of being together, and especially, in localities. And yeah, I do feel that there is starting to be movements towards strengthening that again, which I feel would be very helpful for, humanity indeed.
Mm.
That's my thoughts.
Um, I think I'm thinking about Ukraine and Russia and what's going on in Europe now with the war, and coming out of a pandemic where we've had to meet some difficult times, and people have had to tune inwards in a more profound way. We've been secluded. We've had to be adjusting to new ways of living, and now the war. From a soul perspective, Paul, what do you think this is now? Why is this happening now? If you could tune into your soul and kind of bring us your perspective on that.
Well, my own opinion does seem to be that it wasn't necessary to have this war. I feel that it has been a free will decision made by Putin and I don't know who else. So I don't think it needed to happen. But I feel what certainly is happening in a reaction to it, the people of Ukraine are certainly valuing so much their sense of freedom, and their sense of community, their sense of a life that they've built together with love. And they're not necessarily probably super people or anything like that, any different from other people, but just the fact that they're willing to stand up and even die to try to preserve something like that that is so precious to them is they're suffering tremendously, but it is an inspiration to us where we can feel, well, yes, our own sense of freedom and a life where we can make our own decisions, where we don't have to fit into somebody else's model of living, but where we can find our own and live that from our hearts and share that with love with each other, then that's something, that's something precious that we can gain through being witnesses to this. But I don't really feel that war is particularly helpful for humanity, and there's so much that's very difficult that just saddens my heart with what is going on through this war. That yes, I'm rather on the side that just hoping that it can find some kind of graceful way to end quickly,
Mm,
so less people will suffer.
mm,
So I don't know. That's not very esoteric or anything, but it's just my human view on the whole thing,
mm.
really.
Thinking about us being souls having a human experience, I think for me, looking at what's going on in the world, it's really allowing me to listen inwards and to really listen with the wholeness of my being, just to find my path in this, because we are brothers and sisters here. We have chosen to be here at this time, and I believe that we are here to learn, and we're here to learn as individual but as a collective, to expand and to um, awaken, if you wish, to a higher frequency or higher vibration, the love vibration. So thinking about that, I just want to pull it into your book, Paul, because your latest book, Soul Stories, you've guided many people through to discover their soul journeys. And I want to read something to you, and let's discuss that after I've read it, if that's okay by you. I asked Spirit
Yeah.
before tuning in here today with you what they wanted me to look at in this book. So I allowed myself to be guided, and this is what came to me. So let's see. It says, when we access knowledge about our soul, this can completely transform our life on earth. If we were already in harmony with our inner purpose, then gaining direct knowledge of our soul will enable us to undertake our tasks on earth more deeply and with greater certainty. If we have not been living true to our spiritual path, then what we learn about our soul can be quite shocking and disruptive to our outlook and beliefs, for it will be a wake up call to assert our true self.
Yes, well, that's good. That
It's
sounds that
very
sounds
good.
good.
I love it, Paul. I love it. So please, would you tell me more? Go with it.
Well, the work that I do, and I guess it's not that far dissimilar from the work that you do, um, which is forming a great bond between us. But um, I want to help people connect with their souls. So I guess the people that are drawn to work with me, I don't advertise very much at all. It sort of just happens. People find me somehow. But it's really to help people connect. Well, let's put it this way. Let's make it simpler. Our heart is our center of love, and it's also, I feel, where our soul resides within us. And we are souls in a human body. And when we die, our soul lifts out from us. We rise up to the spirit world. Now, that's something you know that I know that we've both talked with so many people about. But you see, it's something to know that as a concept, and it's another thing to open your consciousness to have an experience of your soul. Now, we come to Earth for lots of different reasons. We're not here just by random. We're here also very much to find our path, whatever that might be, and to live that as fully as we can. And we're not going to do that by staying on the surface or being distracted by this or that. We're going to learn that by going deep inside of ourselves to who we are. And I feel certainly the tool that I use a lot, regression, life between lives, inner child work, etc., these are all ways where people can peel away those layers and start to become aware of their inner core. Now, we have lots of different facets to our beings. It's not simple. And we have things that we're needing to work through, things we're needing to express, and we need to work at it because it's like as we work at things, it gives impetus so that we'll be able to do it. And it's really about humans having a commitment to be true to themselves. Because if we can start to become true to ourselves, then certainly if we've built up a whole array of habits and just fitting in things we should do, duties, all sorts of stuff that we can get carried away with these days, then a lot of that will be just really stuff that we don't need at all. Because we've got to find what is our essence. And when we find what is our essence and we start to open the channels to that, then we'll find peace. And then we'll be able to make the steps that we need to be living a worthwhile life. And I feel for us in our lives today, it's not just about, what we say and what we wear and, going to parties or anything like that, but it's our energy. And when we connect with our soul, with who we are as a soul, then our energy begins to expand. And we all have our own note of who we are energetically. And so when we start to expand from our soul, that note will start to expand also our energy field. And we will attract those to us that, perhaps we can help, or that perhaps there's something that we can offer that will help them connect with their soul a little more as well. And so it goes on. Of course, if we're not connected with our soul, those that we attract around us will be probably just those that, we want to have that, think or feel similarly to us, have a similar ideology or whatever there, and you just continue to be in the mass consciousness, which is really a bit of a mess. And I feel unless people do start connecting more fully with their inner truth, with their soul, this whole planet is going to get more and more into a mess. So it's something which is very important for all of us to do as well as we can now, if only for our own sake, but also if we're wanting to make a positive difference to the planet.
I agree with you, Paul. And like I said, starting this interview, I tuned inwards and listened to the guidance of my spirit, and that led me to meet you. And when I met you, we talked about this on an earlier podcast, but I just want to revisit it because I think it's such an important thing. Like you said, community is important. And when you allow yourself to open your heart space and to meet people, and by allowing yourself to be guided by your spirit, Then you have these soul meetings. And I really felt that when I met you, it was a soul to soul connection. And working with you, and I remember you told me that as well during our first sit down with the trainers, where you said we had to pick who we were going to work with. And you kind of already had picked me out, and I already had picked you out because it was something, there was a connection. And having that opportunity of, or giving yourself that opportunity, open yourself up and to allow people to come into your life, like you so wonderfully explained it, that's when the magic happens. I believe, I call it magic, when people meet soul to soul. To me, that's magical. And that kind of it lifts your spirit, if you wish, and it gives so much hope. And that love connection, which is the connection soul to soul, like you said, it's, you believe it's in the heart. And I've really felt that heart connection with you. I was so comfortable. I was so I don't know if I would say in tune with your spirit somehow, that I would be listening, but not to the words you were describing or saying, but to everything about you, and being authentic and having our journeys, and working together. We had to revisit some of old pains, and that brought me into thinking about you taking me on that regression that we had to go through, where you were able to assist me in letting go of past life trauma. So let's look at that, because I know there's a lot of people, I've spoken to a lot of people who find the two last year, the pandemic, people have lost people they love. People are still, are still very ill. So there's a lot of things going on in the world now, which is traumatic for many people. And you work with trauma, and I've been blessed, like I said, to work, and you assisted me on doing that. So what could you say, what advice or perspective do you have on how can we move away now, so we don't carry that energy, that low traumatic energy, with us into the future and what we create? What can we do? Do you have any suggestions?
Oh, yes, you said a lot just in that just now, Rebecca. Um, but I think around the pandemic, and yes, I know that there's kind of like the long COVID as well as the the loss of loved ones, which is really very very tragic and difficult. Um, but yes, a lot of people that come to me have lost loved ones, and it can be very difficult because we would have felt so bonded to those ones that we loved so much, and when they die, then and the circumstances might not be easy as well. It's something which it is very hard to cope with that, um, and it's a situation where you miss the physicalness of the connection. But sometimes it is also then important to know that your loved one is in spirit, that their soul is alive and awake, and with love, and they're okay in the spirit world. And it's certainly one of the strands of my work, which I'm sure you do as well, where it's possible to help people go on a guided inner journey where they can meet their loved ones directly, and be able to feel that love, and know that they're they haven't lost them, that love is eternal, and that's something which has its blessing for us in being able to connect with that, and also just for us to open to our own soul as well, the connection with the spirit world, which can be also very very comforting, but also something which will help us to connect more truly with who we are. But you see, it's still a challenge because people can make that connection with their loved one in spirit, but then um, coming back down to be human again, it can be because we're living in such a challenging world. Still a challenge not to say, oh no, I don't want to be here. I want to be up there with my loved one, or I just have had enough. When the suffering is so much. But we need to realize that, we are here for a purpose, and while we continue to breathe, it is, something where we need to live this life and live it as well as we possibly can. And we might not always believe that, but when we go deep into ourselves and we ask ourselves about that, there will be reasons that we need to be here. It might not all be about us, it might be something about others as well as ourselves. But that's something, which is the challenge of this kind of situation. So I don't know if I don't think I got anywhere near answering all of that question that you said, but I
It
kind
was
of
beautiful
got,
said,
got
Paul. Uh, it's a huge thing. I mean, I feel like when we talk about being souls in a human body, the topic is it's so large, it's huge. Just like our soul, we're so much more to who we think we are, and as well as this topic. So I think the best is to just go with the flow and just feel, say whatever comes from the heart. But
well, I mean, could I just interrupt? There
yes,
was one other strand to what you said. I mean, yes, of course, meeting you was wonderful, and it was certainly it was meant to be. It was a great meeting, and the bond that we shared during that training week was wonderful. And it is something where our world is becoming smaller at the moment, and it's so easy to connect with people from other countries and what have you. And it was a real privilege for me a few years ago to be able to come and visit you in Norway, and just to witness firsthand the wonderful work that you're doing, and all the tremendous souls that are around you, and how you're helping to build a community where yourself and all those that you care about so much with this work, and your family as well. Just how there is a building of love, and a sense of shared purpose together, and that's something really which is sort of just you know to witness that in another part of the world, and things that are going on. That's one of the blessings of our age at the moment, which I'm sure will get stronger as time goes on too. It's sort of like when you talk about Ukraine as well. It's like we're connecting with that so immediately. It's like what happens for someone in one part of the world affects everyone else. We're kind of tuning in to each other more and more. This is sort of like the inner connection of consciousness, which is growing in our humanity at the moment, and it's disconcerting. Because when you start to feel inwardly connected with this war going on there, it's we cannot help but also feel in ourselves the kind of suffering that some people are going through, and the aggression, and all of the different things. So we have all of those aspects of humanity in us, and we've got to deal with that somehow. And we're human. We make mistakes. Sometimes we do better than others. Other times. So I think I've gone way off the track, but
no,
anyway.
it's beautiful. Like I said, we're just allowing ourselves to have a heart to heart conversation. And back to soul stories, you've met some amazing people on your journey, and you've gathered some of their stories or transformational stories in your book. Is there any specific story? I know they're all unique and powerful, but is there any stories that kind of you feel more attuned with personally?
Um, well, I'm not going to put any person's story above the others, from that book, because there certainly could be some of them that will be watching this, and in fact, in my heart, I was very grateful for all of those 28 people who offered to tell their story, and I helped them, most of them anyway, to just bring it out and bring the dynamics out that were important for it. But yes, I mean, it's a nice book to read because it's in chunks and what have you. But it was interesting how all of them actually were really happy to share their soul story with others, and I felt that's something which is really beautiful. And it's just that, when we connect with our souls, yes, we naturally want to share it. Our souls are beautiful. There's love, and whatever we've been through to get there, whatever, things there, it's just part of that human experience, and we all share it. So I can't think of any particular one. In a way, it was really giving a space for each of these people to share their particular story, which is unique to them, which I could honor for what that was saying. But of course, a lot of those stories will resonate with others because you'll actually be able to, experience, well, maybe you've got um, you've experienced a loss, or you've got a soulmate, or you might have been an alien from another world, or all sorts of things. I don't know, but it's yes, but it's a nice book, and people have really enjoyed it who have read it. I've had loads of really good feedback, and I think it's the kind of book which, as people are sharing from their own experience, it will help you and others, other people reading it to feel a little bit of a path. What is their path to have to get to their soul? So I don't know if I might write another of those kind of books at some stage, because there were some people I would have loved to include, which for one reason or another didn't finally make it. But anyway, so I like it. It's a good book.
Mm. Um, I agree with you. I love the stories in the book, and I also feel when each individual story has its unique lessons, if you wish, and tuning into the stories and just being part of it, it's a great way to learn about yourself. We all have our journeys, but we can all, like, we're all one, we're all connected. So any story has something for you. It's where you're at and where you're tuning in that will allow you to connect with these stories. So, yes, I totally agree with you. It's beautiful, and I understand not picking one. I was more interested in the reframe of it than I guess. Let me try to reframe this question, Paul. Um,
Okay.
for you, what do you learn by, you're driven, your purpose? What gives you pleasure in sharing these stories and writing these books, and just, is that your purpose, or is this your soul calling? What does it give you? What do you, yeah.
Um, yes. Well, I've written quite a few books, and I think I've still got quite a lot to write. I'm sure, really. I love writing, and I don't do it just for myself. I've got to write in a way that will be something for others to gain from, really, and if that may be the case. Um, so yes, this one I've been writing like stories that I've kind of channeled, and this has been more people writing their actual experiences. So it's a kind of a bit of a different path to some of my other books of more recent times. Um, oh, I've lost my thread,
Yeah.
Rebecca. What was
I,
what
I
were you
I
asking?
questioned when I listened to you speak now, I said, does it then feel like a calling? Like you said, you're not only writing it for yourself, you wanting to share, you wanted to contribute. Is that,
Yes, it is a calling. It
yeah.
is a calling because it is for me personally, a pathway for me to find my own inner truth by what I write and what have you. Um, and yes, it did seem like a service for all of us that contributed to that book. It's kind of like a joint collective service, um, that can be joyfully shared. with others that will read this. So yes, it's good. It's good, and certainly for me, writing books is a calling. I have no doubt about that. And
So I know there's a lot of people questioning what's the difference between a purpose and a calling. What is your perspective of that, Paul? Could you please share?
oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. Um, well, I might feel that I have a purpose in a way to, if I come across a person, um, like coming across you, for instance, I feel that there was a purpose for us to meet and a purpose for us to work together in that time. And it was a fairly brief meeting ground, really. It wasn't something where my meeting you was going to drastically, you know, bring us together for something joint, but just more that we met at a certain time for a certain period of growth. That then you got propelled in your way and I got propelled in mine after that. So it was a purpose, but I wouldn't call the meeting of us a calling. My calling is really more to do with what I did from that meeting. And for you, your calling was how you felt from that time, which involved a lot of other things as well as meeting me. Has you've developed from one thing to another since then with what is your life now, which I feel the calling is something deep in our hearts, something we feel that we've got to do. It's something really coming from ourselves, and it's something bigger. A purpose can have lots of different strands to it. A calling is something like a life commitment, really, in a way. I don't know. That's just a thought that came to me. It's not something that I'd considered before, so I just let it come from me.
I agree with you when you say that the calling, for me, the calling is something that's deep within my soul. And to be honest with myself, I prior to these 2 years, that's been kind of transformative for me. I've had to peel some more layers and realign myself with the new energies. And
Can
just,
I ask you? Can I
yes,
ask you? Because I haven't been a lot in contact with you in these last 2 years. Has it been challenging for you? Have you had a difficult time with all of this going on?
yes, it's been quite challenging. I had this calling, not, I wouldn't say calling per se, since we just discussed it. Let me say that I needed somehow, my human self had a sort of a need to remove myself from what was going on in the world, to realign, to really peel the layers and see, because what used to give me a sense of purpose no longer fulfilled me. So I knew I was changing. I knew there was something within myself that I didn't see and that I need to have some more clarity on. And it's a world with a lot of things going on in the world. So I actually was guided by spirit. You know my spirit guide Zarius, because you actually was there when I first got his name, because you were assisting me. So
Oh.
I heard him speak to me in 2018 and said, um, some way, leading me some way that I needed to take a break from life, if you wish. And how do you take a break from life? I'm a mother. I'm working. I have my own company. I'm married. I have commitments. It's not like I can just run away. And so I said, okay, I'll figure it out. Whatever comes, comes. I'll be open. And what actually came about was a TV show, believe it or not, a reality show in Norway called The Farm.
Ah,
And
yes, I
this
remember
is where
doing
you regress in physical form, regress
it.
back 100 years, where you can live on a farm and you live of the land and you live with nature. And you with a small group of people, and you have to run this farm the old way. No electricity, no, you have, we have to live from the land. And it was a detox, if you wish, on all levels. And it was what I needed. But the part that I did not foresee prior is that when you come out of this, you have to watch yourself on TV. You might say that that's kind of weird. I knew that. But one thing is foreseeing that, how would that be? But you're living in it, you're in the moment, and you do your best. And then you come home and it's lagging. I mean, because you're watching, and it's like the soul watching the screen and seeing all when you pass over, because I've done this, right? And I've seen my life and what I've done wrong or what I could have done different. And it was like watching myself, looking at the screen, seeing myself in a previous lifetime, like 100 years ago, and not, and then having a reaction from the outer world on what and on who I was on that
Mm.
show, or perceived to be by the ones editing it. So it raised a lot of questions in me, which I then had to really dig deeper. So the 2 last years, I've been soul digging. I've been spending a lot of time quiet in stillness, and I've had to release some trauma that reappeared, some layers that I thought I'd been letting go of. I worked myself through. I saw new layers to them. So I had to really be patient with myself and to find a way to love myself that I hadn't loved myself prior to. The completely acceptance that I thought that I had of myself. So it's been, I thought, okay, so I'm 45. When this happened, I was like 44, 45. And I was like, okay, so I'm now in the midlife crisis. That's what I kind of said. It's my midlife crisis. I have to figure this out. But I have a
Mm.
loving family and I have great friends. And so I just took that time to myself. And I feel that was what, I guess, Spiritual Quest Season 2, the reinvention of life again, coming. I feel like I've been reborn in a sense, where I have this, I'm more clear that I can choose a new path, and a path that's more fulfilling for me at this juncture of my life, if you wish. And so it's been it's been interesting, Paul.
Mm. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that, Rebecca. That's really good to know a little of your process during this time. Yeah, so I had a very, very interesting 6 months where I lived in the wild bush here in Australia, and I lived on this property there. And I can tell you that in the evenings there was this huge cacophony of sounds, which were the sounds of the wildlife and the bush. And there was absolutely no sound of townships or cars or buildings, anything like that. I couldn't hear anything except the bush. And there was so much wildness where I lived during this time. And, of course, in Australia, you're also talking about snakes and ticks and spiders and all sorts of things which are maybe you wish they weren't there, or at least I did. But it was still something where I could sense how the wildlife, they had their own survival things going on, but it was like it all had its place and a sense of connection together. And in this special place, humanity had very little to do with it.
Mm,
And it was really for me just just so wonderful just to be in a place where I could experience life where humans were not dominating. humans were not putting themselves at the center of everything, but where there was this other mass of life going on. And I think that that's also something which the COVID brings to us, really, if we're awake to it, that we're not so, this whole thing about dominating over all life on this planet, it's not really something we need to do. It's a bit arrogant, really. And we need to find our place more, not just with each other, but with all the nature and all that is on this planet, and approach that a bit more humbly, I feel would be a really good thing. And certainly for me, being in this bush setting over these 6 months, yeah, I felt, um, you know, it really cut me down to size in terms of my overall significance. But I loved the wildlife. I loved the lizards. I loved the colourful birds, and we gave them names, and the way they would behave. I loved the trees, and the ponds and the lakes, and the whole energy of the place. And you know, it didn't really feel like it was really a place for humans to be very much, really. So it was kind of, I was a bit of an intruder, I felt. But I
What a
miss it.
gift. Yeah, what a
I've had,
gift that you were given to be able to
yes, it
do
was
that. Yeah.
it's a tremendous gift for me, yes. And I've had to leave there, but I really miss it. I really, really miss it.
Well, thank you so much, Paul, for this wonderful hour with you. It's always soul enlightening. It's really comforting to speak with you again, and thank you for being here and sharing your story with us. Um,
Well, it's been a privilege, and thank you so much, Rebecca, for asking me. Really.
it's been a heartfelt conversation, and I truly appreciate the amazing work that you do. I really do. So
I
we
appreciate the
will.
amazing work you do.
Thank you. And for you who's watching, if you want to learn more about Paul and his book Soul Stories, you'll find Paul's contact information in the episode summary. And don't
I,
forget
I
to, yeah,
um I just want to say with Soul Stories, I really just published it myself. So it's available from Australia. I've got loads of copies, and there are also some copies in the UK. So I don't mind sending them to Norway if any of you want it or anything like that. I can arrange that quite
thank
easily.
you.
So that's just
Thank
practical details.
thank you for that. And remember now to join the conversation by signing up for the Spiritual Quest Newsflash, where you'll have the opportunity to submit questions for my guests and join live events to receive guidance from Spirit. So thank you again, Paul. It's been a pleasure. And thank you for listening or watching.